When I was in high school, I was shy about working on my flute stuff when everybody was home. And so I used to go in my mom's closet. It was not a big closet, like a very small closet. Like I had like, I would be sandwiched in between coats, like there was no space for me. It's just they were soft, so I was able to get in there. And it sounded it's so dead in the closet. It soaks up all the sound. And so I know people who like the sound of playing in the loo because it's so resonant. But for me, I love playing in like a closet because I know if I can make it sound good in the closet, if I get out of the closet, it's going to sound even better.
Welcome to the podcast, Best Practice for Musicians, where we discuss how to practice more efficiently and play with more joy. I'm Judy Minot, and I'm the author of the book Best Practice, Inspiration and Ideas for Traditional Musicians. Today I'm talking to Boston-based Irish flute player and singer Shannon Heaton. Shannon is a world-class American performer with Irish roots and universal appeal. She's also a prolific and creative composer and arranger. One reason I wanted to talk to Shannon is that she's passionate about making Irish music accessible to players and listeners of all levels and backgrounds. She's done this with her duo with guitarist Matt Heaton and with her podcast, Irish Music Stories. Shannon has created free resources for Irish traditional musicians, including the long-running Tune of the Month video and podcast series, 4 books of tunes oriented to beginning and intermediate players, and the virtual guided session, which started during the pandemic and now has participants from over 50 countries. Shannon, how are you?
Great. Nice to see you, Judy.
Yeah, always good to see you. And as I said, I really wanted to talk to you. I'm so excited about talking to you today because you're one of the people I really feel like I have an affinity with in this journey to trying to help people become better players and better practicers or whatever we want to call it. But first of all, I love the revamp of your podcast and the focus on deep diving in particular tunes. I think that's been really fun for me to listen to. I never thought I would get into all those sources of tunes and like all the different versions.
Well, I mean, I think there's always a bigger story behind just the notes. That's what I'm after in the podcast is, yes, to talk about kind of where this tune came from, maybe who collected it, who played it along the way. But there's usually some kind of extra musical story that runs through the whole thing. That's the part that I'm most excited about.
Yeah, it's fun because usually you think of a tune as just a tune and you don't really think about, well, why was it called that?
And really, all of that chat is just a way to have conversation. It's like asking about the weather or what you ate. It doesn't really matter what it's called. It's just sort of an entree into conversation, like in a session when somebody says, oh, what's that one? How do you know that one? It's not really just about the tune. It's just sort of an entree into getting to know somebody.
Part of the being in a session or in other types of music that aren't Irish, they don't call it necessarily session. They call it maybe a jam. Hanging out with people is just as important as going from tune to tune to tune to tune, right?
Totally. I mean, we could be in a runner's club or a chess club or whatever. It's just like a built-in thing to do. It just so happens that this thing that we do also has a lot of legs, has a lot of people behind it, is very well traveled, is old, has been sort of worn by many other practitioners before us. So there is kind of this amazing community that we bring with us every time we play a tune, like.
Really, and also doing it makes you feel so good.
It can. And I think it can also feel really cruddy if you feel like you're not able to fully participate because maybe you don't have the vocabulary.
Yeah.
That can be very frustrating.
Yeah, that's a good point. In my book, I focused a lot of stuff about trying to get people to kind of feel better about their own playing. Well, how do you try to encourage people who consistently feel like their playing isn't up to snuff?
I think there are a lot of things to playing Irish traditional music for me. That's my orientation is Irish music. And in Irish dance music, playing of tunes, there's a big repertoire. And so that can be, just learning the vocabulary. It can be, it's a bit of a boarding pass that you have to organize in advance, for sure. It's rhythmic dance music. That doesn't necessarily have to mean fast, but it's rhythmic. So being able to really tune into that rhythm and being able to access a pretty robust repertoire Those are kind of two big nuggets to tackle. In addition, there are ways that we move through these tunes to make them pleasing rhythmically and to sit on these Irish instruments that involve techniques, ornamentation, and breathing appropriately. And that can be also another sort of hurdle. So I think, you approach being able to practice this music, to be able to play, to be a practitioner of this music, by maybe doing a lot of listening and learning and watching just to enjoy it. And then the technical part is just learn tune and then another tune and then another tune. Continue to hone your sense of what your own rhythmic comfort zone is, and ideally play with people with a very defined sense of rhythm. And just keep workshopping those techniques that can kind of hang you up. I mean, I think it's just as simple as those three elements: rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Always bearing in mind the bigger picture, the end goal, which is right here, right now, which is us being able to connect through this music. Whether we know two tunes in common, whether we play very fast, whether we play with a lot of ornamentation or none, we can still connect on the tunes that we know right here, right now. It doesn't have to, we don't have to get to a certain level before we can participate. We have to be able to know a certain amount of tunes and really be able to hang in there rhythmically in order to sit in with a small session that might be at a higher level, because it doesn't make sense to just, jump in if you're really not fluent with a language, to just jump in on the high level conversation. But just to say, hi, how are you just need a couple of words just to sit down and play a few tunes. It starts today, I think. So keeping the big picture in mind, and then those three elements: building the repertoire, building a real comfort with the rhythmic style, and continuing to hone fluency of technical elements on each of our instruments.
Gosh, you'd really hit it in a nutshell about sort of how to work your way. I kind of remember beginning violin, and it was a long time before I could play in any kind of a session, but I would invite a friend over.
Nice.
And we would play, as you say, the two tunes I knew, really slow.
I think that's a great way to do it. From the beginning, it's social then. To have a practice buddy, it's an accountability thing. It's someone that you can kind of draft off of and offer support to. And then if you go to a session together, you can say, hey, let's play our tunes.
Right.
You have a buddy. That said, to only play with your buddy who's also learning is not going to help you inhabit a really nice defined sense of rhythm. So listening to and playing with, whenever possible, people with a very, very strong, rich, settled rhythmic style, I think is key. That has been key for me, and it continues to be very important to my enjoyment of this music, is to continue to find opportunities to play with people whose rhythm I really love. And I mean that in every sense of the word. The rhythmic pacing, the cadence of the music, but also like the tunes they start and what types of tunes and when and how much conversation to have in between the tunes. That's all part of the rhythm of it too.
So tell me a little bit more about your idea about rhythm. So you're talking about rhythm as a whole of like a session, right? Not just the rhythm of the tune.
Both, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the overall feeling of what reels feel like, the overall feeling of what jigs feel like, and the overall ability to tuck into somebody else's pulse that she's laying down. Some people have a little bit more of a loping thing. Some people have a little bit more of a taut driving thing right on the beat. To be able to tuck into that, I mean, that's kind of key.
It's an interesting thing that you can sort of listen for. Very often, if you go into a session, especially if it's people you don't know, it doesn't even matter what your level is. If you don't know their repertoire, you may find yourself sitting for a good portion of the time and just listening. And so sometimes as a musician, it can be easy to just say, oh, I wish I was playing, But I find that when I've come with a defined set of things to listen for, it helps me to say, okay, I think I'll listen for rhythm.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, with this dance music, that's mostly what is going to grab us. when we hear somebody play da la do dum da da dum la do la do la do da da dum, what we're listening to is the pulse, is the life in it. Sure, we're hearing the melody, but I think above all, those are two rhythmic approaches. I think what we're noticing most is the way that they feel,
Yeah.
even more than the way they sound. And so I love that when I'm in a session, especially when, the rhythm just feels so sweet. Maybe it's fast, maybe it's slow. That's not rhythm, that's speed. But the rhythm has this really nice life to it. And maybe I hear a set of tunes or a few sets of tunes that I don't even know. Oh, it's so sweet and so enjoyable to just hear people laying that down and feel that rhythm. And then when a tune comes along that I feel like I can contribute, it's fun to jump in there. And it doesn't feel like I haven't been playing. I've been sitting there the whole time soaking it up. I've been part of it. I maybe didn't know this tune or that tune. Yeah, listening is a thing to do. Like,
Yeah, it's a thing to do. What other things do you think you might focus on if you were being an active listener?
for those of us with the power of sight, I know some amazing blind musicians, but for those of us who can see, I think it can be really fun to watch people. To watch people, how their bodies move when they're playing, and to watch their interaction with each other, with the music. It can be really an interesting thing. It can clue me into how maybe things are sounding. Another thing that I notice, I think, when I'm hearing people play together and it's just sounding just really right, is the pitch tends to be very centered. Like the tone is nice, but also that they're playing very much in tune with each other. So that's another way I think of, tuning into the rhythm of a group musical experience. It's about catching the speed, the rhythmic pulse, the cadence, and the way that the tunes are coming across. Are they very exciting and driving? Are they sitting back a little bit? In that body language kind of a thing. We don't need sight for that. We can pick up on that, physically too. And also tonally and pitch wise. If they're very, very in sync, if you're really in rhythm with somebody, really in tune with somebody, it can be just like two instruments can sound like seven.
I just had that experience in a session a couple of days ago where it started out with two people, a father and son. And they were both playing the fiddle, and it was like they were both sort of sucked into this beautiful pitch and feel. And then a couple more people joined and kind of joined into that thing. And then the session got to about 6 or 7 people, and it was harder for everyone to kind of do that. I think it's easier to pick up maybe sometimes when there's contrast like that. You hear them, one and the other quite close to each other.
I think so. And I think, no matter where you are in your journey, I think it's always great to check in on your own time with like a fixed pitch, like a drone, and play against that and just like try to sense for yourself, da, da, da. How's that third against the root? Can be really, really fun to do and really helpful to do.
Yeah, drones on the internet that you can just go get on YouTube. They're like 6-minute drones.
Yeah, or I have my drone tool. You can kind of hear when it's in tune.
Yeah.
It can be very, very helpful, I think. I mean, on the violin and on the flute, on some of these instruments that are not fixed pitch instruments, we have to develop a sense of what we like and also a sense of how to adjust. So if we're playing with a fixed pitch instrument, we can lock right in with where they are because they can't adjust.
What are you working on that's exciting to you?
Yeah, I mean, I always have a combination of existential goals and pressing next up kind of situation. And sometimes that's not really in balance. Sometimes I have a lot of things I need to cram. I have like something coming up, a project coming up with someone who has sent me a bunch of tunes that I need to learn very quickly. And then there's I want to kind of go over those beautiful tunes that I remembered back in November when I was in East Clare that I used to play back in the day, and I don't want to forget those. And, while I'm at it, I'm always after like investigating my tone and seeing where I can take that. And I have a new solo project that I'm working on. I have done a lot of solo trips around, just me, flute, singing, and whistle, and telling stories. And that's a really that's an opportunity to make a lot of music in a small space. Every kind of note, every tune that I choose really matters because that's all that I've got. So kind of like a one woman show kind of a thing. So that's always kind of uh, rollicking around. And then, sometimes it's important for me to just sit down and just play with no agenda. And so I'll just say, okay, even though I have all these other things coming up that I need to learn or that I want to work on, I'm going to just sit down and for 15 minutes, stream of consciousness, I'm going to just play reels. The first reel that comes into my head, play each one, twice and just keep going. Like, just keep going. I often am helping people who are trying to find consistency, who are trying to up their game with being able to pick the flute up every day and find some success. And with a lot of my friends who are in that position, I suggest having kind of a set routine. If you're looking for consistency, be consistent. I do not have a total routine. So it's really important for the first 3 minutes that I pick up the flute to kind of do the same shtick. So I have this like thing that I run through. I just play some long, low Ds. I play some harmonics. I play up really, really high and down really, really low because those two, the higher, the better you are up high, quiet, the better you can be down low, loud. Just run through a few tricky ornaments. Like I have just like this quick hit list for myself. And beyond that, it's very inconsistent. But I find that even by creating a tiny, consistent routine, that puts me in the headspace of like, okay, now I might not be working on the same thing from day to day, but ideally, I'm going to do it with the same amount of focus. That's hard.
That's fantastic, though. And it means that even if you start for 15 minutes and you get stopped by something, you did that.
Indeed. And I think I really, really learned this when our kid was born. Just I did not have a regular time to play my flute or to write tunes or to work on anything. And so I found that, my kid's asleep, quick, an hour of podcast editing. My kid is asleep for 15 minutes, quick, go out to the car and play my flute. Actually, he's always been really good about sleeping through things because I didn't go out to the car to play. I said that because I just passed somebody playing the flute in the car in downtown Boston. And I was like, oh, that's what I tell people to do if they feel shy to play at home. But no, I mean, just like you have the 15 minutes, you might not be inspired, but that's the 15 minutes you have.
That's fantastic. I had a friend who was asking, how do I play the accordion in my apartment because everyone's going to complain, and I never thought to suggest that she goes to her car.
When I was in high school, I was shy about working on my flute stuff when everybody was home. And so I used to go in my mom's closet. It was not a big closet, like a very small closet. Like I had like, I would be sandwiched in between coats, like there was no space for me. It's just they were soft, so I was able to get in there. And it sounded it's so dead in the closet. It soaks up all the sound. And so I know people who like the sound of playing in the loo because it's so resonant. But for me, I love playing in like a closet because I know if I can make it sound good in the closet, if I get out of the closet, it's going to sound even better.
Well, that is a good point. I'm one of those that I don't want to sit on the toilet, but I will seek the echoiest room in the house for my own natural reverb. Yeah.
I love a dead space because then I can really hear what's going on. And there's no flattery. There's no hiding.
That's a great pointer. Do you regularly record yourself and listen back?
I have as a diagnostic tool. I think it's great. I really do. And I did notice when we switched to doing lessons online instead of in person, I really hadn't done much of that before COVID. And I found that in many ways, students have improved so much more readily because I think you can hear what you really sound like when it's just you. So yeah, regularly I'd have people recording and sending things back, and I think it was a great diagnostic. I think it can be overused. I think if you're struggling with feelings of insecurity, and or you're maybe a very self-critical person, the ego is a great thing. It gets us out of bed, it gets us working on things, and nothing like seeking to improve. I think this is a noble project. And sometimes, if you're listening for mistakes, if you're listening for ways to improve, you're probably always going to find something in there.
For sure.
So I think using it in short periods, I've been working on this tune. I'm going to record it twice. I'm going to listen back. And I'm going to try to find 2 things that I like about it first.
That's nice. I like it. First, think of good stuff. Because yes, your mind always goes to the, oh God, I can't stand it. I did that. Another thing that I try to do is to say, I'm listening to this for X. In other words, I recorded this so that I could see if I could have less string noise.
Yeah.
So that the first thing I listen to isn't intonation. It's string noise.
Yeah. I mean, and I think sometimes to be dissatisfied is not a bad thing.
Well, I sometimes talk about the difference between being discerning and being critical.
Nice.
It's one thing to be, just self-critical, but to distinguish what you don't like and what you do like, that is a positive thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And also to have high expectations for yourself. How much more beautiful can my rhythm hit? Nobody's going to say, oh my gosh, it's like too rhythmic. Her rhythm is too clean. Her rhythm is too lovely. It's never going to happen.
If you're enjoying this podcast, I hope you've subscribed on whatever podcast service you use. There are audio versions available on Apple and Spotify and other places. But also check out the Patreon site for Best Practice for Musicians. It's still kind of in its infancy, but right now, if you sign up for just $5 a month, you'll help me pay for the technology to create this podcast series. Thanks so much. So talk to me about breathing. As a flute player, I know that you're and a singer, very much in touch with breathing. How do you feel it affects your approach to a tune?
Well, I think for all of us humans, breath fuels us. And when I am speaking with you, Judy, and I take a deep, dark breath as if I were about to yawn, I feel very relaxed. When I take a bunch of shallow breaths, if I'm getting all nervous, it doesn't feel great in my throat. And it might be a sign that I'm a little anxious talking to you, or it just might lead me to start to feel anxious. So a nice deep dark breath can fuel comfort for all humans.
And when you say dark, what do you mean by dark?
So this is lower in tone. Before I yawn, it's a little bit lower, my throat is more open. Versus that's a little higher. If my throat is closed, it's going to be a little higher in pitch. So deeper in pitch, lower, more open-throated breath. Flute players, breathing is our superpower. We have to figure out how to phrase tunes properly in a way that doesn't interrupt the rhythm, in a way that maybe enhances the rhythm. That little breath that I grabbed. Breathe. So where I'm breathing kind of affects how I'm spelling out the tune, how I'm laying out the rhythm.
Right.
As a flute player, as an Irish flute player, we have to find ways to phrase the tune, places to breathe that make sense with the tune and with the rhythm of the tune. It's a lot to bite off, but we have to do it from the beginning. So this is the sort of amazing thing of learning Irish flute is you have to think about high-level phrasing from the beginning.
Right. Now, let's say I'm a cello player or a guitarist. And maybe this isn't something I had to face from the get-go. Why should I care?
Yeah, I mean, every instrument sort of has different considerations. So, how you're going to bow your tunes as a string player is really going to affect your rhythm and your phrasing. So, that's kind of even more central for you guys, for you string players. You got to face that from the beginning. That said, finding bowings that make sense with the phrasing, it still is kind of like where you're breathing. And I play with fiddle players all the time. We breathe together all the time. My friend George and I have played together for many years, and he has often said, I just know exactly where you're going to breathe. And he
Interesting.
often sort of phrases, stops things with me.
I also noticed that since flute players have to breathe, they are a lot more aware of opening up the tune. In other words, allowing there to be less in the tune rather than filling it with notes. That can be a completely appropriate way to vary a tune, is to leave something out.
Yes. And oftentimes, as a flute player, it can be so nice to keep it going to the end of the phrase and then take the breath after the downbeat of the next phrase. So it's sort of the opposite of what you're saying as well. In
Right.
addition to leaving space for a breath, oftentimes we will keep going.
When a group of players all are very in tune with each other and all do that at once, it's quite an amazing thing.
It's quite an amazing thing, being in tune with each other. So the pitch is there, even the phrasing is there, because the rhythmic style from the beginning is there, because we know the tunes in common, because we're really in tune and in time with each other.
So, talking about breathing and phrasing, how do you teach people phrasing? Like, how do you teach what is a phrase? How do you find a phrase? Where do you decide where the phrase is?
Well, it's a lot like speaking, isn't it? I might take a breath at the end of a thought. I might take a breath at the end of the sentence. I might string together a thought and a thought and a thought until I've had the whole sentence, and then I might go around and take a breath after that. It's really about knowing the tune, where the tune's going, knowing the direction of the tune, knowing the architecture of a tune, knowing how it's put together, and just figuring out sensible ways to spell that out. It would make no sense to go wouldn't make no sense. So I think a lot of it is about learning the construction of a particular tune and just sort of learning of the flow and the shtick of these tunes. I think, they're really pattern based. I think you can kind of get a sense of phrasing that would apply from one tune to the next pretty readily.
Several years ago, I saw you playing an accordion. Do you still play the accordion?
Oh, I love the accordion. I have had fits and starts at learning the BC button accordion. I'm a busy person.
I was just wondering whether it helps you to be in touch with the issues of being a beginner.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I do think that trying something new and being really completely out of your element, it's a very powerful experience. It's one that maybe right now, I wonder, since we seem to have a bit of an empathy deficit in our country of America, maybe there aren't enough Americans who are putting themselves in positions where they just are really out of their elements. It can be very humbling. When people come from another style of music, maybe where they haven't learned orally before, I have met a number of people who feel very uncomfortable learning things by ear. Understandable. If you're not used to something, it can feel very uncomfortable, very frustrating. And I've had a number of people explain to me how we all learn differently and some people just don't learn by ear. And I'm not sure about that. I'm not an expert on this sort of psychology or all of that. I have met a number of people who have said, I just can't do it. I just can't do it, who have then become able to do it. And in the process of working on that very uncomfortable thing, I have often heard people say, well, I could read anything. And I'm actually a really, really skilled classical pianist or whatever, which is great. I speak fluent Thai. I don't speak Japanese very well. And it's very humbling to try to learn some Japanese. The only similarity to my experience of learning Thai is, well, there was a time that I did not read and write and speak Thai well. And I know that with practice, I now can. And I think with the ear learners out there, nobody said it better than my friend Alexandra. She said her biggest hurdle to learning by ear, which she can now do beautifully, was overcoming her own impatience with herself.
That's lovely.
So lovely. I was like, I'm going to tattoo that right here
Yeah.
for all the things that feel very, very frustrating. She said at the end of the day, it's just exposure therapy and getting over your own impatience. I thought that was just, it said it all.
And as adults who are usually very skilled at a lot of things, it's very difficult to confront something that we're not really that great at.
Yes, it really is embarrassing. It's embarrassing, and also, you do feel a little pinched for time. Like, well, I don't know, I want to learn this, but it's
Will
going
I
to.
have time? Right.
Yeah, but right here, right now, the practice is where you're at, right? So if you know your two polkas and you're able to play them with your fiddle friend at home, and then you're able to play them at the pub, that's where you're at.
Correct. Let's talk about your practicing a little bit and your playing. A lot of professional musicians I've talked to say that it's very difficult to find time to practice things that aren't sort of practical. In other words, I have a gig coming up. I've been asked to do this project, and you already did go into a little bit of that, which was really nice to hear how you do set aside some time to do the things that are just for you. But how much time do you practice now that you're, accomplished?
I agree. It can be hard to make the time. There's always time to be found. It can be hard to make the time and set aside the focus to work on things, especially when I feel able to do something. I mean, it's good enough. Like, I'm able to get through it. Like, do I really need to practice? Over and over again, I learn from the times that I'm not able to really do much maintenance work. If I'm on tour and I'm just driving around during the day and then getting to the gig and playing the gig and then rinse and repeat, it starts to feel not quite as easy. I start to feel physically not quite as comfortable. Sometimes that's when injuries can happen too. So time and time again, I learn how important it can be for me to make a little time just to play for the sake of tuning into where I am today. So for me, that's what practicing is yes, I might have a list of things that I need to learn. Yes, I might have like a running list, which evolves over time, of little bits of tunes that I'm sloppy with or whatever. But I think overall, I'm going to have just a sense that to stay in condition, I do need to have this sort of regular maintenance time. That is always in the back of my head what motivates me to pick up the flute. It's because I know that when I do want it to be there, it'll be there.
Right.
For me, practicing, kind of like really mindful workshopping of things, that's me hedging. That's me saying, okay, so if in 1 week or if in 1 month or if in 1 year I have a situation where I really want to be able to lay it down. Because there are times when the old ego wants to be like, okay, boys, really? We're going to play the faster, louder game? Okay, here we go. Can you do it in F? Because I can. Can be really actually gratifying and can feel like a sense of personal accomplishment that keeps me in the game. So I guess, keeping that in mind, like, you know what, every once in a while, it's nice to be able to just, play fast, play an F, show off a little bit. It can be really nice. It can just be a really fun thing for me to be able to have access to that, whether I use it or not. So I guess keeping that in shape just in case I need it is a strange little selfish motivator.
Well, I think I was going to ask, do you reach a plateau? But then if you set yourself goals like that, say play an F and playing these, weird Tommy Peoples tunes, then you have something to aspire to in a way. I think it's not weird at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately, I haven't really reached a plateau. I'm not there yet. I'm sure that some people are amazing and like they just, probably don't need to get any better. But I do find that as soon as something feels easy or fluent, there's always a way to make it more challenging. You can play it in a different key. You can play it louder. You can play it softer. You can play it faster. You can play it slower. That can be really challenging too. You can weave it into a song and kind of go in and out of singing and playing. I think that can be really fun. I mean, there's all sorts of things. You can make a tune based on that tune. You can learn a little bit more about the history of the tune. When a tune becomes really, really comfortable, I mean, when's the last time you did some digging and found out all the different people who recorded it? And oh my gosh, that old nugget. Wow. That's a cool note. Tommy Peoples, when he used to play the Rose and the Heather, that high pickup note. I mean, what? That's like a new world. So just one little note of a tune you may not have considered in that way can be really exciting.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, and a great way to keep yourself interested.
And if I ever am feeling just like stuck, maybe not pushing myself, just not, if I just go to a session. Here in Boston, there are so many fine players, and I'll just sit down for a few hours with people who play at such a high level and who love this music like I do, and it's just instant. Like I walk away inspired to become a better player, to learn some new tunes, whatever. It always works. Or even putting on a great recording and playing along.
Exactly. Talk to me about composing. What inspired you to compose?
I guess I've been making up little tunes, for a lot of my time, my life. Probably in 1997, 1998, I really started writing them down, giving them names, So I've been at it for a while. Oftentimes, for me, writing a tune is a response to an event or a person. It's often a commemorative thing. And I'll just sort of be thinking about that person or be thinking about that event. And just a little motif comes out, just some little melody. I don't know why. There's no purpose for it. I have no designs for my compositions. Like I'm happy to make them up and play them. Sometimes Matt and I will play them on stage, or sometimes we'll just play around with them for a couple weeks, and I don't really care about holding on to them too tightly. I work with them for a little while and then they're done. I don't like keep wanging away at them. I think it's pretty natural when you hear a bunch of melodies and you're around this sort of vocabulary, this sound all the time, to then, unfurl a few of your own from there. It's just like if you learn to speak and read, it's pretty natural to begin writing. So, yeah, it's always been a natural thing, kind of an important thing for me.
You don't sound like you're too precious about it. Like you're not trying to push them out into the world.
It's not a commercial endeavor for me. In the same way that actually my podcast, I love my podcast. I love Irish music stories. I love writing these episodes. I spent a lot of time writing and doing the research and coming up with the stories. I mean, a lot of time.
It's obvious.
Staggering amount of time.
I am not surprised. They are gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yes.
I put them out and then I do nothing. Nothing. I've done nothing for promotion. I've done nothing for monetization. It's a total failure of a commercial and public endeavor. But I kind of feel like that's how my composing is too. Like, I don't know, I'm just going to make it and then I'm going to move on.
Making a podcast is a lot of effort. But you do it for love, it's wonderful. And I have to say, I think it's finding its way out to people because all the people I know of it. So
well, that's lovely. Thank you.
So Shannon, when you're practicing and you run into a mistake that you just can't seem to conquer or erase or iron out, how do you approach that?
I think if I encounter something that is difficult, I think I quickly try to figure out what's difficult. Maybe it's because I just don't know the tune, or maybe because it's just super awkward on the flute, and so maybe I'm gonna just adjust it slightly so it's more idiomatic for my instrument. Or maybe it's just because my technique is not good in that particular series of notes, in which case I'm going to slow it way down until that series of notes becomes easier for me. I'm not going to just keep playing it and messing it up. That is not going to be fun for me, and that is not going to fix the problem. I think if I really found something that I could not fix, I would not play that tune. Because if the only way I could play it is to continue to make the mistake, I would just be reinforcing this bad feeling. So I think if there's something that is difficult, you can probably winnow it down to like a few notes or a few measures where something's getting hung up. So you figure out what's difficult, you slow it down, you work it carefully and slowly and relaxedly until it is not difficult. You put it back into context, not fast. The goal is to get it to be fluent, not
Right.
fast.
Right.
And then you fix the problem. I think it's as simple as that.
And where do you stand on metronomes?
I think it can be really helpful to know how fast you're playing sometimes. A metronome can be a great diagnostic tool to say, let's try what speed is that? Okay. Then you play the A part of the tune with the metronome. That's where you're at. And then you turn the metronome off. And then you work on it a little bit. And then you turn the metronome on again and you find out, where you're at. Just sort of see and then maybe you try it a little faster or a little slower. It can be a good diagnostic. I think also there are cool beats and loops and things that can be really fun to play along with. In the same way that playing along with other people can help you reinforce your own rhythmic surety and your own rhythmic style. Probably playing along, not with a clink, 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 but something that sounds kind of cooler. Some like tabla beat or some whatever Casio Afropop thing, whatever. Like the old Casios have hilarious beats.
Right.
It can be really, really funny. I think that can be really fun. And it's kind of like just playing with somebody else. Playing with other people doesn't make you better. Playing with a metronome doesn't give you good rhythm. Playing sometimes with people with great rhythm and playing sometimes with some kind of beat, metronome, some loop, can be a really great way to reinforce rhythmic style that you're working on.
This is a great time to plug your In Harmony tune book, which comes with a CD that has the two separate tracks. And playing along with Matt Heaton playing the guitar is very inspiring.
Yeah, I think that was kind of an interesting idea we had. Like, what if you have just the flute in one channel, just the guitar in one channel? So flute players could play along with just the guitar players could play along with just the flute, or you could play along with just your own instrument. I think that can be very helpful, to play along with somebody else.
With a real backup.
And also, playing with other people doesn't give you good rhythm. You're the one who develops your own rhythmic sense. Playing with other people with nice rhythmic style can help you define that rhythmic sense for yourself, for sure.
Well, thank you so much. There's so many great little nuggets in here. I can't wait to edit this down. And is there anything that I didn't ask or that you really want to talk about?
I guess for people learning Irish music, this Irish music has a grand vocabulary. There are a lot of tunes out there, and you're never going to know them all. And that's not the goal. I think when overwhelmed, sticking with session standards is a really wonderful MO because those are standards that other people play. If your idea is to play great Irish music, you got to play with other people. And if you're going to play with other people, learning standards is wonderful. Playing not too fast, session standards. If you've got a real healthy repertoire of The Maid Behind the Bar, the Sally Gardens, Joe Cooley's Reel, the Lark in the Morning, the Condiments Rambles, or even forget the Lark in the Morning, too many parts, just 2-part jigs. If you've got a great repertoire of that, then the 6-part, newly composed slip jigs can be really fun. At the end of the day, start with the core, start with the canon. And with older recordings too, there's music before Dervish and Alton even. And those bands are so fine and so fun, because they have fun modern arrangements. hearing the Tulla Cayley Band, hearing Josie McDermott's beautiful album, hearing stripped down versions of tunes, I think can be a really wonderful way to just inhabit this beautiful repertoire of music that can be easily played with other people.
Lovely. Yeah, and I will say, to reinforce what you just said, that I'm living in Dublin right now and attending a lot of sessions, and even the highest level session, if someone comes in and they've never been before and they're asked to start a tune or to start a set, and they start, even though people have been playing these tunes that I've never heard before all night, but that when someone comes in and they're asked to start a tune, if they start one of the 100 most well-known tunes at a reasonable pace, and they play it nicely, even if they are just struggling along, actually, everyone is happy to join in.
Oh,
Happy.
totally. Yes. Yes. And if that same person were to struggle through some really obscure, modern composition that none of us could help out with, it wouldn't be as easy. Nobody would go away happy, Which is okay.
Yeah.
And it's back to the little room. It's back to the mom's closet. It's okay.
But
it's only music.
It's a shame to go away disappointed with your experience. You'd rather come out a success. So set yourself up for that.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, Shannon. Really, really great. What do you want people to do? What's your call to action? What do you want people to listen to, look out for? Should they listen to your podcast? Should they, what CD is coming out next?
For learning nice standard tunes, my husband Matt and I have a collection called In Harmony, really meant to empower players of all levels. So hopefully that's helpful. And my Irish Music Stories podcast is a deeper dive into some of these great old tunes, telling the bigger stories behind the music.
I love it. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Best Practice for Musicians, where we hope to provide inspiration for musicians who want to practice more effectively and play with more joy. I'm Judy Minot, author of the book Best Practice, Inspiration and Ideas for Traditional Musicians. For links to anything that was discussed in the podcast, to sign up for the newsletter, or to find my blog, you can find all of that in the podcast notes. And if you have friends who are musicians, why not let them know about this podcast? A special thanks to all my Patreon supporters. You help make this possible.